And now to Carol Marin and a provocative conversation about who gets tax breaks and why. Carol.
Thank you, Phil. TIFs are tax increment financing districts from which the city collects about $400 million a year. They're supposed to be used only in cases where development could not have occurred but for the public investment. But much of that money goes toward subsidies for private developers in areas that are anything but blighted. One elected official has called these a hidden tax increase, and he's made reforming them something of a crusade. Joining us now is Cook County Commissioner Mike Quigley. For the record, we invited Cook County Board President Todd Stroger to join us as well, but he was unavailable. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Before we get to TIFs, though, it's my understanding that Board President Todd Stroger was calling in various commissioners today behind closed doors to talk about tomorrow's board meeting and what he wants to accomplish in terms of tax increases. Correct so far?
We had a budget briefing today for Wednesday's announcement.
And what did he say?
There's about a $230 million hole in this budget, and he will offer a menu of tax hikes for commissioners to choose from, much like a buffet, much like the City Council was offered by Mayor Daley to fill that gap.
And there was a hue and cry already when President Stroger suggested a 2 percentage point increase in the Cook County sales tax, which would take us to one of the highest of any major city in the nation.
The highest.
Is he still clinging to that?
As of today, he is still supporting a 2% sales tax hike.
Is this going to fly?
I don't think so. My concern is that a smaller tax might pass, or one of the other items on the menu might tax. Utilities, phone tax, gasoline tax, and that again is coupled with what the city is going to be hitting the citizens with as well.
Right now we're at a point where the state is in a massive budget crisis, the county is in a massive budget crisis, and so is the city. You've been arguing of late and strongly that we should look at this as a kind of umbrella problem, right? That stop looking at individual governmental entities. How exactly do we do that?
Well, I mean, the bill has come due for the corruption that we've read about for years, and the bill has come due for the inefficiencies that we've dealt with for years. My view is let's reinvent government. Let's look at how it's structured and ask ourselves, what should we do, who should do it, and how should we do it? And I think you get greater efficiencies across all those lines, and you probably don't need these tax hikes.
You met with the governor as well today?
Yes, busy day.
And he called you?
The governor's office called us in to talk about how to force this process of reinventing, and I give the governor great credit. It was his initiative, and he has promised legislative initiatives to help restructure local government in the Chicagoland area, and it's long, long overdue.
But wait a second. The governor is absolutely stuck in Springfield in what is a vitriolic mess. So is it appropriate for the governor to be worrying about how county restructures its government when his own government in Springfield seems to be a bit of a quagmire?
I welcome allies wherever they come, and while the state does have its fiscal problems, if the governor of this state has offered to help me solve the problems we have to avoid tax hikes at the local level, I'll work with him.
Let's talk about TIFs for a second, because it is one of those things when you just say TIF, people begin to glaze over a little bit. Why do we care about TIFs? Why should we be upset about TIFs?
Well, the first point is that TIFs are a hidden tax hike. At the very least, your tax bill would be about 4% less than it is now without TIFs. It could be as high as 6 to 12% with the new loop TIF coming in. It collects about $385 million a year, and it's not on your tax bill.
Give me a working definition that I can understand about TIFs.
A TIF is an economic tool designed to promote economic development. It freezes the value of property in an area for 23 years, and any growth, any new tax dollar out of there for inflation or market reasons goes into that TIF district to be used just about any way in which the mayor wants to use it.
So are they inherently bad?
No, they're a great economic tool. The mayor has correctly said they're the only game in town. But I think Cranes has equally said that it's become sort of a bag of goodies for the governor to pass out to his friends.
The governor or the mayor?
I'm sorry, Cranes has said that about the mayor's use of TIFs.
And so what you're saying is they're all right if they're used properly, but if they are sort of a gift to a well-connected developer in an area that isn't blighted, he gets the benefits and our tax dollars don't end up going the places that they need to, like schools and other...
I have a hard time. TIFs are supposed to be in blighted areas, and of course now the whole loop is TIFed. I have a hard time picturing the mayor touring the Olympic delegation and saying, this is our blighted loop. I have a hard time thinking he'd do that. He'd proudly say this is a great central city. It's an area that's been growing at about an 8% rate per year in value. Not an area that needs a lot of impetus. Yet we've poured millions of dollars into TIF dollars into the area to cover up our horrible mistakes. $35 million into cover the overruns at Millennium Park. $45 million into Block 37, the superstation, which at this point leads to nowhere. Horrible overruns there. We use TIF money to fund West Loop condominium developments in a market clearly glutted. So we're wasting money that should be in our pocketbooks, and it should be in neighborhoods that are blighted, that require economic development.
But you're a Cook County Commissioner, and you're part of a different